What's up, guys? This is Christopher Weaver from Fitness Achieve Personal Training, coming at you from Asheville, North Carolina. Today I just wanted to do a quick video to kind of hit on a question that I get quite often in terms of triathlon and endurance racing and training, and that's race day nutrition for long course distance triathlons. And long course distance triathlons, in my opinion, is anything from the half Ironman distance race on up. And there's some wonky distances in between, but the standard distance is the 70.3, which is a 1.2 mile swim, the 56 mile bike ride, and then the 13.1 half marathon at the end. And then of course you have your Ironman, and there is the Ultraman and things like that these days. But anything that's above that 70.3 mark is a long course distance triathlon. And at that point, when you get into those distances of races, it becomes important. Actually, it becomes more than important. It becomes mandatory and adamant that you replace calories during the event. There's just no simple way around it. You can't not take in calories during your event. Any time that you go much beyond 90 minutes, you can be assured that you have depleted your glycogen stores, and you're then going to be switching over into burning, stored fats and things like that for energy from that point and beyond, which isn't the most efficient means of fueling the body, and that's why it can feel kind of not so good whenever you switch over from burning glycogen to burning your fat stores, although it's good for weight loss and all that stuff, so that might be why we push over there. And then, when you do the Olympic distance, most of us are pushing beyond that 90-minute mark, obviously, and you are burning some fat, but usually you're right there on that threshold, so you usually can push beyond. You might want to take in a gel or something during that event. You might want to take in a couple of sports drinks or something along the way during the bike. But in terms of really needing to come up with a strategy of how to replace calories, it's not really that important. But anything, again, that's the long course racing, you got to come up with some kind of plan to start taking in some calories. Otherwise, you're going to hit a wall, and you probably won't be able to finish the event. And if you do, man, you're going to be in terribly bad shape at the end of that thing. So, what the rule of thumb is, and this is coming from a lot of research for years and years and years and years, back since the 70s when triathlon got started, and I suppose even before that when folks were out doing marathons and everything, which of course the marathon goes back to the original Olympics in Greece, is most of your sports scientists, most of your professional triathletes, most of your triathlon coaches are going to tell you the starting point is 300 calories per hour. You need to be shooting to consume at least 300 calories per hour during the long course event. Obviously, you can't consume any during the swim, and if you've figured out a way to do so, then you're certainly doing something that that I have no idea how you're doing. A lot of times, most of the guys are going to be trying to take in a lot of calories on the bike. Most people find that they can consume calories on the bike pretty well, and the body can tolerate it pretty well. It's not really that big of an issue. And then the run, you might have to get a little bit more creative to get in your calories on the run. So we're just going to talk about some things that I personally have done during my races that have worked out pretty well. Also, I want to tell you a little bit about what I did in my first half Ironman that didn't work so well. And that'll be it. And I got a couple of things I'll show you if you're not completely familiar with some of the things that are available out there. So anyway, let's just get started. Again, 300 calories per hour is kind of that baseline that most people feel like you should be shooting for. If you think about it in terms of this way, if you're doing an Ironman distance event, chances are it's going to take you between 10 and 15 hours. That's kind of where the bulk of the age groupers and so forth fit in. At a very minimum, you're going to be burning about 500 calories per hour. Some people are going to expend more of that. The heavier triathletes, things like that, you're going to be spending more than 500 calories per hour. So if you think about, even if you're only a 10-hour guy, 500 calories an hour, you're going to burn 5,000 calories just during that event. That's not taking into consideration your basal metabolic rate, which is the amount of calories that your body's consuming just to do all the other types of involuntary functions that are necessary in order for life to continue for you, and that's breathing and your circulation, cellular degeneration and production. All of the stuff that's just constantly taking place inside of our bodies require calories in order for that metabolism to take place and for those functions to occur. And so 300 calories per hour certainly will not replace everything that you're burning But the theory behind it is you just want to replace enough that it gets you through there and keep you from hitting that wall. And the wall, bonking, and any of the terms that you might hear relating to glycogen depletion. Now, if we're not taking in any calories, basically most people, if they're engaging in moderate to intense exercise, are going to hit glycogen depletion at around about the 90-minute mark. So at that point, the body's going to switch over, and you're going to start utilizing stored fat, as a means of fuel. Now, that's fine. The body can function on some level just from fat burning. It's not the most efficient source of energy production for the body, and so that's why you kind of might feel a little bit lethargic and things like that. Once you hit the wall, you can keep pushing somewhat. So you want to take in calories. Now, what I tell people is, use the 300 guideline as just a starting point. If you can consume more calories than 300, then go for it, because I'm telling you, you can use those calories. I mean, nobody's going to be down in cheeseburgers and things like that during a 112-mile bike ride, probably. I mean, there might be some wild and crazy guys out there that can that can do that, but most people aren't going to be, taking in any huge amount of calories. And most of you will find that it's hard to take in 300 calories. That you actually need to train yourself to be taking in 300 calories while you're actively competing, while you're actively training, while you're actively engaging in physical activity. It's a little bit difficult. It's not like sitting down and eating. If you're on the bike and you're trying to consume 300 calories every hour, it's pretty tough. So what are some ways to get in your calories? Well, a lot of people use these little things right here, and I do use them. And anybody that knows me knows that I'm a big proponent of natural foods and eating whole foods, whole organic foods, lots of fresh fruits and veggies and things like that. But I got to admit, now when it comes to my training and when it comes to my racing, you got to do what you got to do to get through it. And so I will use a lot of these things, and these are just your little energy gels. This particular one here is by Power Bar. It's a Power Bar Energy, and my camera's not the best, folks, but right there it shows that it has some caffeine that's also in here. It's got your electrolytes. Electrolytes are very important, just to keep the body in balance and to keep all of the energy production and the functions of the body operating where they need to be, and also to prevent cramping and things like that. So this is Power Bars. Here's another variety. This is from Cliff Bars. Again, this is a caffeine enhanced version of it. These are just called Turbo Shots. Either of these can get the trick done. Both of them have 110 calories. So a lot of folks will use these as a way to get in those calories. And what these are is they contain a lot of simple sugars. So the 110 calories that you're going to get are primarily coming from the simple carbohydrate sources, which are great because the body will quickly assimilate and absorb simple carbohydrates, and then it'll quickly be thrown into the furnace so that it can be used up for energy. Another way that you can go about getting those 300 calories per hour or more is to use a sports drink. And this is just Hammer Nutrition's Hammer Heat. This is something that I used during my own 140.6 race that I did a few weeks ago. A lot of people find that they can tolerate the taste of this pretty well. It's kind of a subtle taste. This is a lemon lime version. And I just want to throw out there, none of these companies are paying me a dime to endorse these things. These are just things that that I go out to the store and I buy the same as you guys do. Nobody's sending me any samples, anything like that. So this is stuff that I'm really using when I do my own training, when I do my own racing. And then here's kind of the original go-to stuff, man. This is Gatorade. They call it the G-Series stuff now. This is just the old traditional concoction that they've had. This is electrolyte replacement. It's a sports drink. One serving of this gives you about 80 calories. So a scoop of this is 80 calories. You can take a scoop of the Hammer Heat, which is 100 calories, a little more calories in this thing. What you do is you just take a scoop of it, throw it in your water bottle, throw it on your bike. And here's how you put it all together. And there's one other thing that I want to say, before we go any further, and that's that I feel like you need to have a combination of the simple sugars, the simple carbohydrates, and that's what all this stuff's going to give you. This is all just simple carbohydrates. It's quick acting, but it's also rapidly, assimilated and rapidly used up. I think you need to have a mixture of both simple carbohydrates, and you need to throw in some complex carbohydrates along the way as well. Complex carbohydrates are going to sit in your stomach a little bit longer. Yes, they take longer to digest, they take longer to metabolize, they take longer for the body to be able to convert over into usable energy. But they're a longer lasting fuel source, and that's important. What I tell people is to think about a campfire. Your complex carbohydrates are your big logs that you're going to take and throw into this campfire. It's going to burn for a couple of hours. And it's a slow burning process, and it's not, like a high octane kind of burn, but they just sit there and they burn. And where your simple carbohydrates, your stuff like this, your simple sugars, are more like a pile of leaves. You pick up a pile of leaves, you throw them on the fire, yeah, it burns up really quickly. And, you can keep that fire burning as long as you keep throwing this stuff in there, and the fire is being your metabolism and your need for energy production. You could keep, the fire going, throwing leaves and twigs and things like that on there, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work on you, number one, to have to keep up with, I need to consume 3 of these things every hour while I'm on the bike. I need to consume 3 of these things every hour while I'm running. That's a lot of work, and it's a lot of bulk to have to carry with you. Think about it like this. If you're going to consume 3 of these an hour over a 15-hour race, that's 45 of these things that you're going to have to carry with you or have access to during your race. That's a lot. So, throw in some complex carbohydrates. Now here's what I did for my 140.6 iron distance race. I decided, and I hadn't seen this anywhere, and it's not that it's an ingenious idea or anything like that, it's just something that I personally, number one, I liked the taste of, and number two, I felt like it would adequately help me meet my caloric needs and give me some complex carbohydrates, is I did peanut butter and honey sandwiches, and I used whole grain bread. It's a great complex carbohydrate source. The peanut butter gives you a lot of fats and a lot of, both polyunsaturated, monounsaturated fats, as well as saturated fats, which help with satiation, and it keeps you going. And it's nice, if you're going to be doing a race for 12 hours, it's nice to have something solid to eat. And then the honey that was on there was a really nice, clean burning source of simple sugars. So, in my thinking, it was a great thing to come up with, a great source of calories for me during my race. So what I did was I made a bunch of these sandwiches. I cut them in half. I individually wrapped each half, and I packed them into my bento box on the bike. And you can even shove a few on your, your triathlon jersey. Most of them have at least one pocket on the back. A lot of people like to switch into, from transitioning from swim on a long distance race. You're going to be out there 7 hours or so on the bike. Is to go ahead and just throw a regular old cycling jersey on, and you're going to have 3 big old pockets on the back of that thing, man, so you can fit in tons of food and that stuff. But worked out great for me. At the dawning of every hour, I would eat half a sandwich, and then at every hour and a half, which was 30 minutes after I had my sandwich, I'd have 1 energy gel. And then during the race, during the hour, I try to consume 1 water bottle full of my Hammer Heed. I did use some Gatorade during my race, my 140.6 race, and that was primarily right before the swim and then right after the swim, transitioning onto the bike. I downed as much as a water bottle full of Gatorade as I could, just to try to take in calories. And like I said, guys, it worked really, really well. And of course, on the run, that was a whole different animal. I basically had my fill of gels, so I didn't want to have any more gels. I kind of had a sugar stomach. So what I did was I had pre-packaged a bunch of pretzels that I carried with me and I had available to me during the race, and I would just snack on those throughout it. And the cool thing about pretzels is they're salted, which help with sodium replenishment. Another question that I get is whether or not folks should be using salt pills. I personally don't like salt pills. I will never use the salt pill. To me, it's a confusing process of knowing how many to take in. There's a lot of contributing factors out there in terms of need for sodium during an event, and that's things like humidity, things like heat, your perspiration levels. All of that is completely individualized. We all sweat differently. Some of us sweat more profusely than others. So, it's a gamble, and if you take in too much sodium, you can run the risk of actually working against yourself and dehydrating the body. And if you're not taking in enough, then of course, you can get some electrolyte imbalance and things like that, and cramping and all of that. But the cool thing about these sports drinks is they contain sodium. The Gatorade here has 150 milligrams of sodium per serving. The Heat has 40 milligrams per serving. I'm not sure if the gels have any. Actually, yeah, they have 60 milligrams. The Cliff one, the Power one, actually has 200 milligrams. So both of these have sodium in them. The Power Bar actually has a good deal of sodium. So I don't feel the need to use it as long as you're getting your sodium from alternative sources, and I much prefer the taste of Gatorade over a salt pill any day. So let me tell you a trick about doing your gels, and this isn't really a trick, it's something that's been around for a long time. What most people do is take a water bottle, they tear open these things, they shoot them down into the water bottle, and then they fill it the rest of the way with water. So for me, I figured that I was going to be on the bike about 7 hours, which I ended up being on there. A little less than 7 hours, but it was around about that. I just took 10 gels, threw them into a 24-ounce water bottle, and then filled it the rest of the way with water. Like I said, every half hour, or actually it ended up being every hour, but on every 1 hour 30-minute mark during the race, I would try to consume about 1/10 of my water bottle full of that, just to make sure I was getting in about an entire gel with each gulp. And then, I switched between hydrating myself with my sports drink and then water throughout. And again, that worked really well. And then for the run, I tried the pretzels. The pretzels really helped me out a lot. Later on into the marathon portion, I had a Monster energy drink. Again, I'm not endorsed or anything like that by Monster, but it's just something that well, I felt like I wanted, needed, and felt like I could use a little caffeine boost at the end. And so I had a little bit of a Monster energy drink, the full sugar variety of it, not the low calorie thing that they have, because I did want to get that sugar into my body. It's another way of replacing calories. So again, guys, that's the gist of everything. That's kind of my own personal experience with it. I did say I'd share with you a mishap that I had, and that was during my first half Ironman distance race that I did a little over a year ago. I had been reading tons and tons of stuff on race day nutrition and how to go about making sure that I was getting in enough calories. And if you've ever researched it, you'll find that there's as many different ideas as to how to go about getting in your calories as there are people on this planet. And at the very end of my research, I had a plan together, and a plan I wish I would have stuck with. I saw that someone said, actually it was a pretty famous, really famous triathlete, said that for a half Ironman distance race you don't need to take in any types of foods. You can just use a sports drink. And I said, well, my goodness, what could be easier than using just a sports drink? So I tried to make it on just Gatorade with a few gels here and there. And honestly, I probably took in a total of about 200 calories on the bike. And dudes, I was cooking on the bike. I had the second fastest bike split in the entire race. And I took in about 200 calories during that thing. This was a tough event. That was up here in western North Carolina. It was called the Beast of the East, and man, it was aptly named. It was a tough course. The guy that won it was about 5 hours and a half. I finished in 6 hours and 12 minutes because I completely fell apart on the run, and I ended up walking about the last 7 miles of that 13-mile half marathon, and that was not a fun time, and it was rough. I felt horrible. I was sick. It was just nuts, but I did finish. Again, it was like 6 hours and 12 minutes, and when I did my second half Ironman distance triathlon earlier this year, I shaved well over an hour off of my time. So, and I attribute that solely to having a much better nutrition plan. So, it's been my personal experience. Don't go out there and try to tackle one of these big long distance races with nothing but sports drink or gels. Throw in some complex carbohydrates into the mix. Try some whole foods. Most important thing, and it's the last thing I want to share with you, most important thing is you practice your nutrition during your training. Put as much effort into practicing nutrition as what you are in practicing the sport-specific skills that you're training for. Especially any of your long training sessions that are going to be over 90 minutes. You need to be taking in some calories anyway to be getting the most out of those workouts. So experiment with it. I don't care what it is. If you decide you're going to be eating pizza on the bike during your event, then you need to be training on the bike with eating pizza. So practice, practice, practice. See what your body can tolerate, because the absolute worst thing is having, GI problems during an event, because there's not bathrooms, across the entire course, and you don't want to have a mishap, and you certainly don't want the misery of just having, a lot of gas, or a lot of, sickness, or vomiting, or any of that stuff. So if you just practice with things and you're training your body to take in calories before the event, then you're not going to have any problem during the event. And that's just, I can tell you firsthand from my own personal experience. That's not just a fitness trainer telling you something and he's read about. That's not just a triathlon coach telling him something he's read about, or he saw with other guys. This is actually something that I've done. I practiced it, and now I'm preaching it. So, try to get in at least 300 calories per hour. Practice your nutrition during your races, or during your training for your races, and you'll be golden, man. You won't have anything to worry about. So that's it. Please visit my website, you guys, at www.isssacertifiedtrainer.com/Christopher Weaver, and you can check out my blog at www.punkrockwellness.blogspot.com. I share tons and tons of nutrition, training tips, and just tips for daily living, happy living, things like that, vitamins, supplements, whatever. And I'm always open for questions. I'll definitely answer any questions that you guys send me, via videos. I'm trying to get more into the video thing, just save me a little bit of time from typing. And actually some people, would rather watch a video than read an article or something like that. But also just want to point out, man, I've got my book up and ready for purchase. It's called Simply Wellness, Learning to Live a Wellness-Based Lifestyle One Day at a Time. The book's available at Amazon.com. It's also available on Kindle. You can visit Amazon, just search Christopher Weaver, BS, MA, CFT, or you can just type in Simply Wellness, Christopher Weaver. Any of those things, man, it should send you directly to my book. So if you want to read about how to simplify taking a wellness-based approach to living, and actually share some nutritional tips. I got some training programs and stuff in here, some healthy recipes, just all kinds of stuff, man. So please check it out. And again, I'd love to get your questions. You can send me an email off of my website. Again, that's www.isssacertifiedtrainer.com/Christopher Weaver, or actually www.isssacertifiedtrainer.com/Christopher Weaver. There's a link on there. I think you can click on it to contact me. Just type your question in, type in your email address, and it'll come directly to me, man, and I'll try to do everything that I can to answer your questions. But until next time, stay focused. Happy training, y'all. Christopher Weaver. Peace out, guys.